Okay, guys, you have... No, Snuggle, Pinky, Peanut. Hang on, sweetie. You have to hold the camera this way. It's this button. All right. Lights, camera, action. Okay, I guess this isn't gonna work. Maybe we can fix this in post.
Welcome back to 6 Degrees of Cats, the world's #1 and only cat-themed culture, history, and science podcast, in which I, Captain Kitty, aka Amanda B., and my feline co-executive producers Binky, Snuggles, and Peanut navigate the weird, wild world from the past to the present with the help of an exceptional array of guest experts. All aboard! I bet many among you can imagine the first few real or cartoon cats whose personalities and presence caused you to pause the frame or quietly note in the theater
Do I spy a cat? So cute.
Shh. That yes, there is a kitty in the shot. For me, it was the 1986 suspense film, The Adventures of Milo and Otis. Despite grand cinematic achievements like that, cats have largely remained marginalized in cinema. And very recently, the team and I have had a very serious and important complaint about how cats are portrayed in live-action films. They are rarely, if ever, granted their full humanity. I mean, felinity. You know what I mean. They're either a punchline about a lonely man, an accessory to some quote-unquote crazy lady, or a disposable victim of predators both human and non-human. They're side players and background scene decoration. Babe, cats are main characters. Come on. Now, thankfully, I think this is changing, albeit slowly. I attempted to run a very serious study that required reviewing all 3,047 films in the Wonderful Cats in Cinema website's database, but unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you view the ongoing labor transformation and its environmental impact, the agents could not handle a simple research retrieval task. However, I was able to run a very basic survey of film titles with the word cat in them, and there does seem to be an upward trend. We may be on track to even double the amount of films with the word cat in the title, though I know this does indeed exclude films that are quite obviously about cats, like Garfield and Flo, but the 6 Degrees of Cats Cinema Research Center is pretty short-staffed and underfunded right now. Whatever. In this episode of 6 Degrees of Cats, we'll be hearing from a film critic, a documentarian, and a producer of cat-centric media who are actively and positively contributing to this new wave, if you will, of cat-friendly media. Unless you're one of those aliens or androids who doesn't engage on social media and is reaping the cognitive and emotional benefits of a life lived offline, you've probably noticed that within the past 10 years, our dear furry faves, cats, have been undergoing a massive rebrand. So you're kind of missing out there. We partially addressed the advent of this in our Season 2 Pizza Pause episode, celebrating cats' dominance in internet culture. And over the past 20 years, I think it's safe to say that cat culture has blown up. Cats are showing up in non-cat food-related commercials. More and more celebrities are loud and proud about their cats. We have cat cafes popping up everywhere across the world. There's cat conventions, cat-themed fashion, cat-themed magazines. Oh yeah, and cat-themed podcasts. To the point of this episode, they're also much more prominently featured in film lately. In the past 10 years, we've had Flo, the first independent animated film to ever win an Oscar, which starred a black cat. And more, films are featuring felines, not just as colorful sidekicks, but also significant characters. Just check out the third installment of the hit American thriller A Quiet Place, And a favorite among many on this episode is the 2016 Turkish documentary on the street kitties of Istanbul called Kedi, named one of Time magazine's top 10 films of 2017. Cats are firmly in the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times. And since motion pictures are the most context-rich catalysts, carriers, and containers of the zeitgeist, I think we have a lot to notice when it comes to cats in cinema. As a heads up, we'll be using a lot of C words. No, not that one. The 5 C's of cinematography. The 5 C's apply to all forms of cinema, which would be narrative, where the story is set in advance of the film shoot, documentary, which is based on reality and often the story emerges during or after the shoot, and experimental, self-explanatory. When you're watching a film and something about the vibes is just giving you the impression that the director doesn't like, understand, or care about cats or the people who love them, looking at you, Bohemian Rhapsody, there are little tells within those 5 C's. And the first one that is very specific to cats: continuity, or the lack thereof. I'll let my first expert explain.
Cats have appeared in film since the beginning. They're like fun, weird little creatures that are notoriously terrible to train, which is why when you watch a movie like Alien or Aliens, you're like, oh, there's multiple cats. This is not the same ginger cat. This is like 15 different cats, and they're trying to make us think that this is just one cat. With one of my favorite noir films, The Third Man, you see a cat running down the street and starts playing with the shoelaces, and then light turns on, Orson Welles' face, light turns off, back into darkness. And that cat is probably the 3rd or 4th cat in that movie that's supposed to be the same cat. They were not doing kitty continuity at all.
That, my friends, is one of my favorite writers and film critics.
My name is Angelica Jade Bastién. I'm a writer, critic, essayist, storyteller. I currently work at New York Magazine, specifically at their site Vulture, as one of the film critics on staff and TV critics, but I'm primarily known to write about film. You can find my writing online at Vulture, and also, give my newsletter, Mad Women and Muses, a shot. If you go to angelicabastien.substack.com, you will find me there. As a critic and essayist, I really focus on depictions of mental illness and Blackness in pop culture. I write a lot about acting, science fiction, noir. Female madness is a big obsession of mine, and I'm a big horror nut.
She also happens to be a cat lover.
Cats have always represented good luck. I never got as a kid the whole black cat walks in front of you, bad luck. I always thought of it as like incredible luck. And I just want sweeter representations of cats that lean into the mystery of them and the beauty of them, and how caring and inspiring they are as creatures. Cats pop up in a lot of horror movies. Cats represent a sort of figure that sees through the veil. And this is true, again, throughout history. The idea that cats can see into other worlds, that they're closer to the veil, that they can see through things, they can see ghosts. They're like figures of mystery, which can then be like exalted in some cases, ancient Egypt, and then in other cases looked at as, very dangerous, which is always come back to 2 things. 1, cats, and 2, culture's relationship to mad women. When I say mad women and female madness, I'm speaking of both the experience of mental illness, but also the experience and physical and emotional embodiment of the emotion of anger. it does not take a lot for society to call a woman crazy. She just has to be slightly against the grain. Film can feel very liberating in how it depicts the mad woman as someone who bucks against society, who is obsessed with pleasure and, is a representation of a woman actually being a little cocky and like bold and dynamic in a way I think female characters don't always get a chance to be, especially if you're talking about certain decades, certain areas of the world, especially here in America. But then also, there's another side of the mad woman in cinema in which she can become a sort of landfill for every misogynistic belief that always comes down to this idea that women are inherently hysteric, that women are inherently mad. This way that film and culture and art often ties women to nature. I mean, you can even think of the term Mother Nature.
There's definitely something to this wildness tied to the cluster of traits we call femininity. Thinking back to the mythology we've explored, Bast, Egyptian goddess of fertility, as well as Norse mythology's Freya, the goddess of fertility, battle, and death, which, interestingly to me, closely aligns with the Freudian primal.
With the link between women and nature. It's a way to tie flesh and blood women to this idea of chaos and unruliness. It's not that women are more emotionally attuned and more spiritually attuned naturally, necessarily. It's that you have to be in order to survive a world that is literally trying to kill you. And so I think it's just sort of interesting, especially watching horror films and just film in general, to see the link between witches and cats as a way to sort of speak to unruly femininity. What is more unruly to the world than a single woman with a cat who has a sense of her own power? So there are a few trends when it comes to female madness. One is that the dynamics of female madness in cinema, and it's not just in American cinema or even Hollywood specifically, is that more often than not, I should say, female madness is the prospect and territory of white women. We actually don't really have too many examples of mad women who are of the black and brown persuasion, to put it that way. I think a lot of directors and artists in the filmic space are really obsessed with mad women, in part because there's something cultural to the obsession of watching a beautiful white woman unravel.
And while many of these fictional so-called mad women with cats have been very expertly acted by really incredible performers, such as Academy Award winners Glenn Close in 1987's erotic thriller Fatal Attraction, and Kathy Bates in 1980's non-erotic thriller Misery,
I think it says a lot about culture and race and gender, because we keep making movies about mad women and tying women to nature, to this essential hysteria that is argued about being like the essence of womanhood is to suffer kind of bullshit, right? But you look at the world and the grave violence you're seeing is really men's relationship to madness. And this is not me saying madness as a way to give them an out, but more so to call attention to the fact that as a culture, as a society, as a world, we don't know how to grapple with the ways men's maladaptive behaviors present themselves, because they present themselves very violently. It's interesting to think of the mad woman specifically in certain cultural contexts, like erotic thrillers of the 80s and 90s, because it is not women who are boiling bunnies and killing cats. Women don't have the leeway to do that.
I'm sad to say, statistically speaking, this is indisputable. Also, statistically speaking, Maybe some of you even know this personally. Please do check show notes for resources that remain available to you if you ever need. This is where art comes in. We need art to see things clearly and feel things safely, maybe even experience things differently. But it's interesting to think about why we translate and transform reality in this specific way. I think when it comes to media consumption, more than ever, we need media literacy, as in understanding the context of the moving images we see on screen in the many ways we process art. Here is where I'm going to introduce another C word: criticism. It's not part of those 5 C's of cinematography, but I think it should be, because as Angelica demonstrated,
Critics are an important lens. To be a good and worthwhile critic calls for a broad, obsessive, but also particular interest in history. Not just the history of the medium you're writing about, but the history of the world, the history of the people who've existed in this world. You know what I mean? You have to be incredibly knowledgeable to write good criticism, incredibly curious, voracious as a reader, I would say. And for me, the importance of criticism comes down to the ability to speak truth to power, to call out the trends, the psychology, the history that is flowing through the world that people don't know how to make sense of. We live in a world where people are both incredibly lonely and incredible in their lack of self-awareness about themselves and how they fit into the world. A great critic can be such a vital lens to look at the world, its faults, its foibles, its pleasures, and make sense of them and give them an actual context psychologically, historically, artistically, emotionally. I think they tell us a lot about the lies we believe about how people actually are.
all things that help advance the medium and, yes, integrate the work into the zeitgeist. Here's a good example.
I have an issue with the ending of Bell, Book, and Candle, the 1958 film that sees Vertigo stars Kim Novak and Jimmy Stewart together. And it's a really, really fun movie where Kim Novak plays like this cool New York witch, and she has her witch friends, including her brother, played by Jack Lemmon. She has her beautiful, beautiful gray Siamese cat who helps her cast spells. But why in the hell is she casting spells to get with James Stewart? That man is too old for you, girl. Like, they should have cast someone way younger. It pisses me off to this day. The movie ends. I'm sorry, spoiling a movie from 1958, y'all.
Okay, please skip ahead about 2 minutes if you want to miss the spoiler.
The ending sucks. It's like such a fun movie that I'm always like, why don't I watch that movie more? Because I love the cat. I love how Kim Novak looks. It just looks like so much fun. But the central love story, because it is supposed to be a witchy, fun love story for James Stewart and Kim Novak, it doesn't work. He just is the wrong age and also just the wrong actor for the role. You end the film with her like giving up her witchy abilities, reining herself in to be with this man. What you're looking at really is a loss. Like, even her cat ends up hanging out with her brother, like, oh, you ain't doing no spells anymore. Okay, bye. I think it speaks to the way witches and cats are considered unruly figures against the dominant forces. And so the way that this sort of love story has to end, because they're setting it up as a love story, is she has to give up what makes her creative, artistic, and different to be with this man who is not even attractive. Which, wow, pick a struggle. Like, don't do that, girl. This movie lied to me and was like, yeah, Kim Novak looking absolutely fabulous with her cute cat is totally gonna leave behind her witch abilities for Jimmy Stewart. Okay, sure.
I think this is also a motif in classic stories, like The Little Mermaid. Brutal. It's not simply cultural and historical context that critics contribute to the art of film analysis. Interpreting the visual storytelling elements of cinematography also factor in, which is where we bring in 3 more C's. Cuts, composition, and camera angles. How have those been leveraged by filmmakers portraying cats in cinema?
Film is really good at using cats when they lean into the mystery and beauty of cats and also use them as a point of tension, drama, or really to build suspense. You see it in any movie where someone becomes something small. There's a really interesting, funny sequence in The Incredible Shrinking Man from 1957. Yeah. Dude is not having a good time with that cat, I'll tell you that much. Because you know how they are when they see something small that moves. You're dead. If I became small, I would be scared of cats.
They used over 40 cats. All of these tricks are intentional work with composition, strategic edited cuts, and very painstaking camera angles and lighting to pull off all those wild shots of a man the height of a sewing needle running away from his wife's house cat.
The most effective use of cats exists when you understand the relationship the cat has to their person. That's why I think Jonesy and Alien and Aliens is so wonderful because you're like, oh, yeah, I totally get why Ripley has this cat and why they're cool. And I really love that. And also, the cat is smart enough to be like, that's an effing alien. Let me get the fuck out of here. That cat is so smart. That cat's like, no, I have survival instinct, unlike these people who are making some interesting decisions sometimes.
Angelica is one of us, y'all. So far, we've touched on criticism and 4 of the 5 C's of cinematography. After the break, we'll get a closer look at cats when it comes to the 5th C. In the failed Cats in Cinema research project I tried to run with the team, the majority of the films in that database seemed to be narrative film, like The Witches, and even biopics like the artistic travesty that was Bohemian Rhapsody. No, I'm not going to get over how they did our beloved cat daddy Freddie Mercury dirty. But lately, I'm noticing a pro-cat attitude being ushered into the zeitgeist, courtesy documentary filmmakers. And I'm really glad to bring one such filmmaker into this conversation.
My name is Mye Hoang. I am a director at Grey Hat Productions. I grew up in Dallas, Texas. My parents immigrated from Vietnam. Growing up in Texas with my immigrant family was maybe different from what most people grow up with. They were very, very strict. They didn't allow us to do very much. One of the few things that I got to do as a child was go to the movies. And so it was just a kind of a weekly ritual of my brothers and sisters taking me to the movies. When I was in school as a kid, we would make videos, make little movies with our home camera, things like that. That was just my entire world. I actually used to be in the narrative world, and now documentary films, I've kind of switched over, and I think it suits my personality better.
I met Mye at a screening of her incredible film, 25 Cats from Qatar, which follows the harrowing heroics of American cat rescue cafe owner and flight attendant Katie, who, spoiler, successfully manages to fly 25 cats to Wisconsin, all the way from, you guessed it, Qatar, a wealthy Arab state in the Persian Gulf where charitable donations are illegal. Nearly 90% of the local population are temporary workers, and millions of abandoned kitties are served by a very small group of wonderful people working overtime for no pay to feed and care for as many of them as possible. 25 cats. Wow. Mye both figuratively and literally herded so many cats, among other things.
So I directed this film, edited, I'm a producer on it. I also recorded the sound, although I don't credit myself with that. We always wear a lot of hats to get things under budget.
For the record, it's a pretty non-traditional shooting situation in Doha, Qatar. How did they manage? I was fortunate to have gotten Mye's cinematographer Rob Bennett in on the chat.
I'm a cinematographer based in Los Angeles, and I have a company called Genius Insane. Being behind the camera, I generally operate the camera for anything that I'm shooting. And often that means also coordinating with art department, lighting, the other folks in camera department as well, to create the look of a film. For a documentary like the one that we're talking about right now, it was a very small crew. It was literally just me, and an additional camera operator and cinematographer, Patrick.
Cats did not really want to come out during the daytime. Middle of the night in the street, it's just complete chaos, and we just do the best that we can. It was 120 hours. We literally just had to go from place to place to place, and we just had to get what we could get.
The heat was a big consideration leading up to the film, since I needed to decide what cameras we're going to use, how we can make this thing happen in just a number of days. So did some research into what would maybe kind of stand up to the heat the best, as well as be kind of a smaller, compact camera package to not get in the way while we're kind of going around doing some guerrilla type style filmmaking.
If the local Qataris that live there complained about us being there, we could get detained. I was thinking this could happen, so we just need to try to be as discreet as possible.
Sounds like it was not for the faint of heart to get those perfect camera angles either.
This was so overwhelming because of the sheer number of cats. At Castle, we didn't even see all the cats. There's 300 cats, so it's like, which cats do we focus on? I don't know.
And cutting all that footage of the various rescue facilities with dozens to, well, hundreds of rescued kitties.
We didn't have very much to work with for them, but I got every single cat that was rescued. We got it in there, even if it was just for a second. I ended up editing it because I just think for someone who wasn't there, it's a lot of cat footage, and I could sort of organize it in my brain.
I really appreciated and felt Mye's care for all her feline and human subjects through the thoughtful cuts, the editing choices, the really spot-on pacing, the great sound design, and especially in the close-ups. The final 5 of the 5 C's of cinematography, as it turns out.
I guess to clarify a little bit, we're talking about both animals on the streets and in people's homes. Definitely when filming cats, you want to be able to get in close. Every cat is an individual, and being able to see where it's looking around, all of those little pieces kind of clue you into just a little bit of what's going on in its mind and the kind of character that it is. Getting down on their level to get that kind of cat's eye view at times. I kind of come in, gauge how the cats are feeling, and try to interact with them accordingly. In that vein, one of the plus sides of doing work like this is that sometimes you get a lot of nuzzles, and you're allowed to put down the camera for a second to give a cat some scritches if it's looking for that.
An amazing perk for a job well done. From top to tail, a cat-centered work of art that actually honors cats by centering them in the narrative. Thank you so much, Mye, for doing right by cats and their Qatari caregivers in putting this excellent film out. This isn't Mye's first rodeo when it comes to leveraging film for the good word on cats and cat people. In fact, her first foray into documentary film addresses those old cat tropes we processed with Angelica earlier from a different, equally disruptive perspective.
One day I had an idea about, why can't there be a movie about men who love cats? And then that became my first documentary project, and that was called Cat Daddies. It's about men who love their cats unabashedly, inspired by seeing my husband become a cat guy. In America, we have this stigma about guys who like cats, and there's a lot of men who really don't care about that, and they show their love for their cats. This was appearing more and more on social media, and it was just something that made me so happy to see. I just loved seeing men with their cats. And then at the same time, I was going through the experience of my husband. You would never have guessed that he could like cats. One day a cat found him and kind of opened his whole world, his whole heart. And I think it just goes to show that there's a lot of men out there who are maybe cat guys and they just don't know it yet.
You too can carry on the work Mye and other artists are doing through the power of motion capture to counter those old messages about cats and gender. You don't need to have state-of-the-art tools, professional crew, and specialized equipment. You just need a camera. And a consenting cat, obviously.
The whole thing about video that I really like is you capture more of a cat's personality.
That was our third and final guest.
I'm Brianne Wills, and I'm the creator of Girls and Their Cats. I have a series on YouTube called Cat Lady Home Tours. And then, of course, I have my Instagram account and TikTok as well. I'm Girls and Their Cats everywhere. When I moved to New York, I decided to start a personal project from the female gaze. The first subject that I had, I was photographing her in her home, and her cat decided he wanted to be a part of the photo shoot. I realized that this was actually a much more intimate portrayal. I decided that I would focus on that. The girls part of that is just colloquial. I'm not like photographing young people. They're all cat ladies because all the cat ladies in my life were actually really interesting and not crazy as the stereotype suggests.
And in 2024, Brianne moved to video,
which I found like really, really fun, and it just like changed everything for me. I felt like I was getting more of an insight to both the cat lady and the cat. In a static photograph, you get to like stare at the cat for a long period of time. It's artistic, it's beautiful, you get to see like the highlights in the eyes and the details, but you're missing the personality. With video, you're not just capturing a moment, you're capturing their movement, their expressions, sometimes their voice, and it just feels like you're getting more of the cat. It also doesn't like feel as scary for the cat because I get to be a little bit more discreet with the video. I can just let them do their thing and just be an observer.
Black kitty owners, here's another benefit of video.
Yeah, I think video might do a better job of capturing Black cats. I think it's still a little bit challenging if the background is Black and the cat is Black as well, because they don't necessarily pop as much. But that would go the same for white cats on a white backdrop. It just messes with the white balance.
As an amateur cat videographer with a still pedestrian sense of the 5 C's, I consulted with Brianne for some tips on capturing our cat's best angles for moving pictures of the digital persuasion.
I didn't want to have to carry a lot of equipment. I don't have any lights, so I rely a lot on natural light. I would say like midday when the sun is overhead and the light inside is a little bit more even throughout, that makes it the easiest for me. I have the iPhone 16 Pro and it does very well in low light settings. And while it might not look incredibly professional because it's not like this well lit stage, it still looks good. Like the quality is still there. You can still see what you need to see. So it's just me. And then I have a couple of tripods. I can just toss them in my tote bag. And then I have my stabilizer, my gimbal, which is what I use when I'm doing like the tour portion so that I can not be shaky after all my coffee. I always think it's good to wipe their eyes, make sure they're nice and clean. And I also use some sort of a noisy toy to get them to look at the camera. That's always a very successful shot.
Watch out for
Resting concerned face, helicopter ears. Like, what is this person doing in my face right now? And do I need to run for my life?
PSA moment, y'all. I really don't think it's entertaining to film cats or any animal in distress, especially staging experiences like that for them, like startling them, provoking negative reactions, putting them in unsafe or unnatural situations, places they didn't choose to be in, or bullying them just to go viral. That's like the exact opposite of what we're trying to do here. I don't need to tell you listeners that, but maybe spread the word and report stuff like that. You know, we can train the algorithm. It's actually kind of tied to the zeitgeist if you really think about it. One of the 4 properties of a zeitgeist is media and carriers of it. I think we've made the case that cats and media, especially film and video, are the carriers of this particular zeitgeist. So if you're on social media or YouTube, tag 6 Degrees of Cats on any of the videos you post. We'll share them, and we'll definitely enjoy watching them. Why not keep the momentum going? Well, I think I've just made a reel for USC to hire me to teach film. I'm obviously an expert now. Just kidding. In the next episode, which is coming out a little bit later, we're going to be taking an extra week off for a team retreat to facilitate some team building between Peanut and Binky, who have been having very unprofessional exchanges lately. I am both HR and labor relations. This is not going to go well. I want to thank my wonderful experts,
Angelica Jade Bastién,
Mye Hoang,
Rob Bennett,
and
Brianne Wills.
while the opinions are my own, the research and the work is theirs. If you'd like to learn more about them, please check out our show notes, which also include the references and research that went into this episode. And if you love us, the podcast, or just want to keep positive cat content in the zeitgeist, please consider sponsoring us. You can upgrade your subscription to the Captain's Log, our companion newsletter, or send us $1, $5, $10 monthly on Ko-Fi. Head on over to the show notes to make it happen, and if you so choose, do tag us in your own cat videos or share your favorite film starring a cat. We would love to add it to our letterboxd. Every cat shown lovingly on screen shifts the zeitgeist towards a kinder, quirkier, more open world. Because remember, everything is connected. 6 Degrees of Cats is produced, written, edited, and hosted by yours truly, Captain Kitty, aka Amanda B. Please subscribe to our mailing list by going to linktr.ee/6 Degrees of Cats, or look us up on all those social media platforms. You'll be first in line for the extra audio and more treats if you connect with us there. All episodes are dedicated to the misunderstood, the marginalized, the resilient, and the weird. And of course, all the cats we've loved and lost.
I respect parents a lot because, wow, that shit has to be hard, especially today, especially now in the world we're living in. I have so much respect for parents, but I think we as a society, we as a people need to admit that some babies aren't cute, and that's fine. Not everything has to be cute, but don't lie to me and tell me that baby is cuter than my cats, because it's probably not.